Good evening and welcome. Tonight is Monday, October 25th, 2021. It is 7 o'clock p.m. This is the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. We will call the meeting to order. Would all please join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone should have a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes, corrections to the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes from our October 11th, 2021 meeting. Those minutes appear on pages 6 through 8. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. First thing up tonight, we have two public hearings which we will take separately. First of all, the general procedures for the public hearings is that a presentation will be done by staff, and in this case, I think it's Mr. Willie on both, and Mr. Shannon Sweeney is here, I think, for support if need be. Next, we will have an applicant's presentation if they have one, and then after that, we have public comment. So, we will call to order the public hearing for Tax Increment Financing District number 1-23. And Mr. Sweeney. And the time is, thank you, Barb, 7:03 p.m. on Monday, October 25th, 2021. Mr. Sweeney.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Shannon Sweeney from David Drown Associates. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive comment regarding the creation of Tax Increment Financing District 1-23 and the proposed subsidy agreement with Traverse de Sioux Enterprises, and Creation Technology is also a party to that agreement. So we're proposing to create a new tax increment financing district over approximately 25 parcels in the industrial park. It also includes the Creation Technologies property and the adjoining lot that they own. They are intending to expand their facility and create 10 new full-time equivalent jobs within 24 months of occupancy, paying wages and benefits equal to 120% of the poverty level. Creation will maintain those jobs in St. Peter for a period of 10 years, at least. Otherwise, we would be an event of default and we'd have an opportunity to take action with regard to the contract. In exchange, we're proposing to reimburse them half of the tax increments or the new property taxes associated with the expansion project that they're intending to implement. So they're going to add on to their facility. That facility will pay new local property taxes to the city, county, and school district under normal conditions. By creating a tax increment financing district, we're capturing those new property taxes just on the expansion for a period of up to 9 years. Under the arrangement in the development agreement, we're proposing to reimburse half of those increments up to an amount of $245,000 over that subsidy term. If they fail to pay property taxes, if their valuation comes in lower and property taxes of a lesser amount are generated, we are only obligated to reimburse half of what they actually reimburse in an amount not to exceed $245,000. So it's capped on duration, which is 9 years. It's capped on amount, which is $245,000. And ultimately, we're not obligated to pay that $245,000 if their property tax bill comes in lower than expected. So for that, they're going to add to their facility, create jobs in the community, and we're going to have the opportunity to use half of those tax increments for other improvements that we're anticipating in that North Industrial Park. So more than happy to answer questions. The TIP plan itself, again, identifies approximately 25 parcels that we're including in that district. It lays out a budget for additional improvements, significant additional improvements, if we see development in that area. And ultimately, we have to create a budget and identify an area that essentially gives us some flexibility to implement these things over time, which I think we've done. It doesn't create an obligation to spend any money. That's only done through development contracts like what is being presented to you for Traverse District Enterprises and Creation Technologies. But it gives you the flexibility to make some of those improvements and work towards creating additional jobs in your industrial park. So happy to answer questions as you have them. So thank you, Mayor.
All right, since usually we wait, but since we have two public hearings tonight, if someone has a question now, you can ask it now. If you can ask it later, doesn't make any difference, but so we kind of keep them separated a little bit. So if anybody has any questions at this point. Okay, is there anyone here for the applicant at all that would like to speak? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment on this public hearing? Seeing no one. We will therefore close the public hearing for Tax Increment Financing District 1-23 at 7:07 p.m. on Monday, October 25th, 2021. Next up, we have another public hearing, same rules apply, procedures. Tax Increment Financing District number 1-24, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mayor.
And we will open that one, I'm sorry, 7:08 p.m. on Monday, October 25th, 2021.
Thank you. In this instance, we're proposing to create a new housing tax increment financing district, which enables the city to capture new property taxes for a duration of up to 26 years. It's different from what we just discussed with regard to an industrial park project where we're limited to 9 years. For the purpose of promoting affordable housing, you have a much longer duration that you can apply to a tax increment district. So that's the maximum allowed under statute. You can certainly make these things go away much sooner than that if you choose to do so once obligations are paid off. But ultimately, this district would require that any development would impose restrictions on who a certain percentage of units are made available to. And under statute, you have two choices, and the choice that's most often selected is the one that was included in the development agreement, which is that at least 20% of the residential units in the project are occupied or made available to persons whose incomes do not exceed 50% of the county median income, and that's by family size. And that would be for the duration of any subsidy provided. Ultimately, the developers requested significant assistance associated with implementing the project. The development agreement that was included in your packet provides for the reimbursement of up to 90% of the available tax increment. The assistance was not to exceed $1,499,090 with no interest to be paid on that note. Developers proposing to construct a project that consists of housing units, it's mixed use, and not more than 20% of the floor area by statute in the housing district can be used for commercial purposes. And so, be obligated to implement the project, be obligated to pay his property taxes on time and in full. They'll be obligated to make 20% of the units available for persons of low moderate income for the duration of the subsidy period. And so the hearing itself is on the creation of this district. The boundaries of this district are simply municipal parking lot number 5, which consists of a couple of parcels. And ultimately, it's very specifically being created for one project, and that's by STP Group LLC, who's proposing to construct something on that property. So I think you have some other items related to the specific development proposal on your agenda following the hearing. So,
Okay. Questions now for Shannon? Once again, if we have a question, we can raise it now or later. We'll have that opportunity. Is there anyone, if not, is there anyone here from the applicant that would like to make a statement? Well, during your presentation, Shannon, we heard from somebody in the comments, they didn't like what you were saying. I don't
I
think,
understand.
I'm not sure if it was the amount or whatever it was, but they made it clear that,
Mayor, one more comment. I didn't mention that the duration of the subsidy agreement is 14 years or 14 increment collections. So the life of the district is up to 26 years. Should make it absolutely clear that the term of the agreement is for 14 increment collections. And ultimately, same holds true. It's a reimbursement of property taxes that are already paid. We're not fronting any cash to the developer in this instance under this development agreement. We're agreeing to reimburse property taxes that they're required to pay. And it's only after we document that they're meeting the affordable housing standards that we're setting under statute for them to meet. So thought I should make that clear.
okay. With that, are there any questions now at this point? Because we'll have an opportunity later again. If there is no one else that wants to speak, we will close the public hearing for Tax Increment Financing District Number 1-24 at 7:12 p.m. on Monday, October 25th, 2021. Next up, we will address visitors. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any agenda item? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any matter whatsoever? Seeing no one, we will move into our biggest event on the schedule here tonight. We will have a police swearing-in ceremony for 3 of our officers. And are we taking them on the order that you have there, Todd?
Yeah.
You guys have it all. You guys have it all covered, I'm assuming.
You just out of the way here.
Nope, you should be just fine. Detective Kaczmarzyk, if you'd come on up, and Chief, if you'd come up, that would be great, thank you.
For anybody that wants to, after all 3 of the officers get sworn in, we will take a little recess and allow for picture taking with family and friends or whoever would like to take some pictures at that time. So,
If you guys can be closer together, please.
Okay? All right. And so if folks want to take pictures while this part is going on too, you're sure welcome
sure,
to do
yeah,
that.
I didn't mean that. But
No,
yeah.
no, I don't. All right, Detective Kaczmarzyk, please raise your right hand. Now, you don't have to repeat after me, I'll just ask you to say I do at the end. Detective Kaczmarzyk, do you solemnly swear that you'll support the Constitution of the United States and that of the state of Minnesota, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of detective in and for the city of St. Peter to the best of your judgment and ability? If so, answer, I will.
I will.
All right, excellent. Shake hands, give him a hand. We'll make you sign some paperwork, I don't mind. All right. Thank you. All right, Sergeant Rubbing. Make sure that we're clear up here. All right. Sergeant, you don't have to repeat after me. I'll ask you a question at the end, but if you raise your right hand, that would be great. Sergeant Rupping, do you solemnly swear that you'll support the Constitution of the United States and that of the state of Minnesota, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of patrol sergeant in and for the city of St. Peter to the best of your judgment and ability? If so, answer, I will.
I will.
All right, excellent. Give him a hand. So one's for, yeah, one's for you, one's for you. Thank you very much, thank you. All right, Officer Squires, come on up, please. Okay, so you kind of know the drill? Yep. All right, excellent. Jason Squires, raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that you'll support the Constitution of the United States and that of the state of Minnesota, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duty of patrol officer in and for the city of St. Peter to the best of your judgment and ability? If so, answer, I will.
I will.
All right, excellent. Give him a hand.
Thank you to all three gentlemen. We will take a short recess, Tony, and you want to come up by the flag and take some Stop running.
Huh, go figure.
All right, Tony, you're ready to go the way it looks, so we'll return from our brief little recess there, and we will, next thing on our agenda is the, excuse me, the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins in detail on page 13 and concludes with the resolution on page 28 and includes the following employee appointments. To Jared Kronbach for part-time recreation leader at $10.25 per hour. To Kayla Lee for part-time recreation leader at $10.25 per hour. Tom Prax, part-time bus driver, $17.05 per hour. Linda Rodriguez for part-time transit support specialist at $17.05 per hour. Plus the regular schedule of disbursements for October 7th, 2021 through October 20th, 2021. Are there any comments, questions concerning the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Ziegler.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Blumenthal.
Aye.
Councilmember Jerry Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Next, we have unfinished business, which we have none, so we will move to new business. And the first thing up is the Tax Increment Financing District 1-23, along with the development agreement, which we just had the public hearing on. And now we have Russ and Shannon. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. As we discussed in the public hearing, included in your packet for consideration is a resolution that adopts the tax increment plan, creating a new tax increment financing district that'll capture new property taxes associated with new development for a period of up to 9 years and allow you to redirect those for economic development purposes. Purposes identified to date include the reimbursement of property taxes to Traverse de Sioux Enterprises in an amount up to $245,000 over a duration of up to 9 years, contingent on them executing and creating jobs and maintaining those jobs in the community, paying their property taxes and utility bills on time and in full, etc. The resolution in your packet associated with this tax increment district provides two actions. One, the adoption of the tax increment plan, and two, it authorizes the execution of that development agreement. More than happy to answer questions regarding either document.
Okay, questions? Carrie?
The improvements plan, Todd or Russ, in that district to support future development would consist of what? Primarily street and infrastructure?
Yeah, streets and sewer, as most are knowing, that the MnDOT is contemplating perhaps a relocation of parking lots to the North Industrial Park. That would likely necessitate an extension to Klein Street and some sewer and other utilities. This would provide revenues to do that. So,
Okay, thank you.
This can also be used for asphalt paving?
asphalt paving, basically on the ground or below the ground,
Right.
generally.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? All right. The Tax Increment Financing District 1-23, the resolution appears on page, it's the handout, that's why. The handout that we received that replaced pages 70 and 72. The resolution for that plan for District Number 1 and the adoption of the tax increment financing and the replatting thereto is on this handout that encompasses 3+ pages. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Second?
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Blueflat.
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Wall.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next, we have the, Russ, did you want to comment on the revolving loan before we get into that one?
I'll be giving that report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead. That's next, I believe.
Sure. As Shannon said, along with the anticipated tax increment benefit, it's proposed that a modest revolving loan be provided to Traverse Day Sioux Enterprises. That is the real estate holding company that owns the building and then in turn leases that property to Creation Technologies. Just a little bit of the history. In 2007, Creation Technologies bought the Tatronics business, which was located at 430 Rich Street, which is now occupied by Spring Touch. The building really didn't fit their needs or have the curb appeal for a high-tech electronics manufacturing company, so they had a desire to relocate, and they said at the time it was their desire to stay in St. Peter, which was our desire that they stay in St. Peter as well. We were able to put together a proposal in a project where the city purchased the building and then leased it back to them for a year, while then Traverse Day Sioux Enterprises was constructing a new building in which then Creation Technology relocated and signed a 15-year lease with Traverse Day Sioux, which was coterminous with their bank financing, as I understand the matter. After they purchased the building, they met with Mr. Prafke, the Development Corp, Chamber of Commerce, and Economic Development Authority. We put together a proposal then where they would be provided a $416,673 revolving loan, which was the lot cost essentially to buy the property out in the North Industrial Park. That was amortized on a 15-year schedule and at a 0% rate of interest. They are still paying on that since it hasn't been the full 15 years, and the current balance, given their semi-annual payments, is $66,445 and change. They also then were provided a $400,000 tax increment benefit, and that has been fully repaid. The results of that were that when they were at Rich Street, their payroll was about $3.46 million. At the most recent check, their payroll was $8.1 million, more than doubled. The utilities that they paid to the city in the Rich Street were at $84,300 a year. Their utilities at the new location, given the increased size, et cetera, is $153,600 a year. The market value of the property in the North Industrial Park as it was vacant was valued at $147,766. Upon the initial construction of the 50,000 square foot in 2009, the market value increased to $3.88 million. And with the project for construction that's anticipated at this time, it's anticipated that the market value then will increase once again to just under $6.3 million in market value. So 2021, I looked at my notes from 2009, and it suggested when Creation had a certain threshold in sales and employment, that was what would trigger an expansion. After 11 years, they are at that point. I can say their sales have quadrupled since they've relocated to the new location. And when they relocated, they had, I believe it was 92 employees, and at any given time, they're at 210 to 230, given their ability to fill certain jobs in this existing climate. At this point then, as I explained, they're looking to have a 38,880 square foot addition made to the plant, generally in a north and west direction. It has been portrayed to us that the investment came down to St. Peter, Minnesota, or Dallas, Texas. And they've chosen to to expand in St. Peter. The construction project is about $4.8 million. As Shannon mentioned, we have the tax increment benefit, also then a $200,000 revolving loan. They would get bank financing of just about $3.4 million, and then the ownership or the members of the syndicate would be able to contribute $1 million in their cash into the deal. So again, once again, the proposal is a $200,000 loan. It's proposed to be amortized on a 10-year schedule. with semi-annual payments. It would be established at a 0% rate of interest. Creation's pledge then would be to create 10 new full-time equivalent positions, and they would renew their 15-year commitment to St. Peter by signing an extension to their lease with Traverse Des Sioux Enterprise. The note would be collateralized with a subordinate mortgage, subordinate to the primary lender, who is still being chosen at this point, as I understand it. Subcommittee of the EDA did review the finances of Traverse Des Sioux Enterprises and found nothing that raised any concerns. As you can imagine, it's a real estate company, so it's rents in, loan payments out, depreciation, etc. So that was reviewed by subcommittee, and then the ADA did consider the loan at their meeting a couple meetings ago, and they had recommended that you approve the loan on the terms contemplated in the resolution. Mr. Mayor, I'd answer any questions that you or members of the council might have.
Questions for Mr. Willie? Carrie?
I have just a real practical question, kind of following along on the EDA spreadsheet. How is this tracked when there's an additional loan request? Is that like a separate line item? So if I'm
I didn't hear that.
on your EDA spreadsheet that you share with the EDA, and it tracks all of the different loans,
Oh,
does
yep.
this show up as a separate line item?
Yes.
Or is it tracked with the other loan that they currently have going?
That the spreadsheet that is provided by the finance department to my office on a monthly basis, that is a line item of every single loan. It should show what their balance was as of December of 2020, and then it should show their current balance to the month to date.
Okay.
And then we should be able to track whether they're current, and also I asked them to put the balloon date on there for my benefit. So
Right. So if
don't have to
this
go
is
over
a-
their files.
This will be treated as a separate loan,
As
so
a
it'll have a
separate loan,
separate
okay.
row.
Okay, that's,
Oh, that was your
that's what I was
question.
curious about. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
So I see a lot of benefits to this proposal. They are creating jobs, they're expanding, which is really great, and staying within our community. Obviously, the labor market is really tight. Are they still fostering relationships in the community? They're gonna, add these additional jobs. Will they struggle to fill those within the time requirements, do you think, or are they?
I don't think they have a special elixir that'll make, it easier than it is right now.
Right.
And they have struggled at times, so obviously most are aware that they were tap into a large portion of the East African employment market. I believe they'd continue to be struggled, but they have all the faith in the world that they'll be able to meet their obligations that they're making.
Right, thank you.
Anyone else? If not, the resolution approving a $200,000 revolving loan to Traverse Des Sioux Enterprises LLC to partially finance the construction of a 38,880 square foot addition to Creation Technologies appears on page 76. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Councilmember Blumenthal?
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Llewellyn?
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye. Resolution is approved. Next up, we have the Tax Increment Financing District 1-24. Shannon.
Mayor and members of the council, included in your packet is a resolution approving the tax increment plan and authorizing execution of a TIF agreement with the developer STP Group LLC that's proposing to develop a mixed-use project on municipal parking lot number 5. As mentioned, it's a housing district. The developer would be held to income restrictions on who units are made available for 20% of the units developed. They would be allowed to have commercial space not exceeding 20% of the floor area of the project that's developed. And ultimately, they've requested a reimbursement of tax increments over a term of 14 years. And the amount that was established was $1,499,090 in eligible expenditures that potentially could be reimbursed. Ultimately, that reimbursement will only occur if they pay that amount in property tax that's actually captured in tax increment over that 14-year duration. If it's something less than that, they would be reimbursed a lesser amount. They're required to pay all property taxes in full in advance of receiving any reimbursement. They're also required to make all property tax, public utility payments on time and in full. Otherwise, it would be an event of default under the development agreement. More than happy to answer questions regarding the creation of the tax increment district or the resolution that provides for the adoption of the TIF plan and execution of the development agreement.
Questions?
TIF agreement, I'll be clear.
Questions for Mr. Sweeney? Comments? We're being pretty easy on you tonight, Shannon. You don't have to comment, just an observation. If there are no questions, the resolution approving the establishment of Tax Increment Financing District 1-24 within the Municipal Development District Number 1 and the adoption of the Tax Increment Financing Plan relating thereto appears on pages 134 to 136. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Brunette,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember DeBoer.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate it. Next up, we have the development agreement and land sale for this St. Peter Land Partners development. Russ?
Yes, Mayor, thank you, Shannon. Municipal parking lot number 5, the city's been marketing that for development for in excess of 20 years. We've been down the road a few times, and at this point, I think we're asking for your approval to approve a project. You're asked to approve the purchase agreement, you're asked to approve the design that's been approved by the Heritage Preservation Commission, and then you're asked to authorize the mayor and city administrator to sign the development agreement. A little history: in May of 2021, you executed an exclusive negotiating rates agreement with Old Town Development LLC, which is Dave Shue from Coldwell Banker and a few of his partners. The agreement was for 6 months, and it allowed them to put together their design and engineering, and also let the HPC the opportunity to undertake their review of the design and materials, et cetera, of the construction. At this point, Mr. Mayor, I will note that Old Town Development LLC intends to assign the purchase agreement and then undertake the project as STP Group LLC, which was contemplated from the beginning. It is generally a construction of 2 mixed-use commercial residential structures on parking lot number 5. They've been assigned addresses of 410 South Minnesota Avenue and 418 South Minnesota Avenue. The TIF agreement was prepared by Mary Ipple, attorney out of the Twin Cities, that we've used on a number of occasions over a number of years to put together tax increments and other development proposals. And then the city attorney prepared the purchase agreement. I will note that you may notice in the purchase agreement there are some references to Southwest Minnesota Housing Partners, SW. Those have all been changed to STP Group LLC. The purchase agreement establishes the sales price of the property at $1. That is a price that had been contemplated by previous councils as they have contemplated proposed developments. And then the purchase agreement would obligate STP Group LLC to undertake the construction that's been approved by the Heritage Preservation Commission. The design review, the ordinance, the Heritage Preservation Ordinance provides the following as the HPC's purview. It says, in the case of proposed new building, that such building will not in itself or by reason of its location on the site materially impair the architectural or historic value of buildings on adjacent sites or in the immediate vicinity within the HPC preservation property. At the July meeting of the HPC, they were asked to undertake a visualizing process. They had no renderings, no drawings, no site plans before them, and they were asked to close their eyes and kind of verbalize what they'd expect or what they would see or envision for a development upon that property. And there were a couple overwhelming themes. One, that it should not exceed 3 stories in height, which sounded very reasonable to be compatible with the rest of the downtown. The other is that it should use materials that are already utilized in the downtown or the historic downtown St. Peter. It should avoid a predominant glass edifice, and I think the reference is made to the Profinium building in Mankato. And it's a beautiful building, but probably is not appropriate to be located in proximity to the St. Peter Heritage Preservation District. And then lastly, that the building should be orientated towards the streets, which is pretty simple. At the second meeting, or at the August meeting, they had the preliminary renderings that were done by Bright Pixel Design, architect Matt Broe, who's been engaged by Old Town Development. And their initial thought was it looked like it was too big. It should look more like individual storefronts. So were there other architectural treatments that can be done to make it look like individual stores rather than a large superstructure, if you will. They also then said they did not like the stamped brick pattern that was used in a building that the developer had undertaken in Old Town Mankato. Rather, they thought that it should be the brick veneer, or what's known in the trade as a thin brick. So it's a brick, real brick material. It's just not the full width of the brick. It's a more of a half inch or so. The mortar is a real mortar. So for my intents, I was not able to identify whether it was a veneer or a real brick. When I looked at a development that's currently undertaken in the sewer, then I was able late last week to confirm with the architect that did the Mom and Pop's building, or now is Sweet Alice. That brick on that building is the brick veneer. Ryan Langenmeyer was able to confirm with that. Also then, the other predominant material would be a hardy board or hardy siding. That would be the same material, different color that's utilized on the Sticks and Stones building, as well as then the Mom and Pop's building. So what's not brick it's kind of like a purplish shade. That is the same siding material that would be proposed to be utilized on this structure. The HPC said when they got some literature, it was very helpful to them to kind of understand what their role is and what they should do. And so I put together a couple things, one from the National Trust of Historic Preservation, and it says, what is good infill design? There is no absolute answer. Good design will vary according to its setting. Because an infill building is new, it should look new. However, its appearance must always be sensitive to the character of its neighboring or its neighbors without mimicking them. A new building should contribute to the character by respecting the location, design, materials, and other character defining elements. A new building should be compatible with the existing environment without exactly duplicating existing buildings. They looked at setback, they looked at proportion, they looked at height, they looked at the roof shape, they looked at orientation, the rhythm of the windows and doors, the materials that would be utilized. They looked at ornamentation. They looked at the scale, the massing, finally, and the color of the development. This is the fourth opportunity that the HPC's had to undertake a review of new construction. However, this is the first one that's been on city property. Others include the courthouse addition for Health and Human Services, again, Mom and Pop's, or what's now Sweet Alice, and then the Sticks and Stone building. Compatibility should also involve an analysis of how the design principles are used in the neighborhood and how they can be interpreted using today's materials and construction techniques. Members of the council, Mayor Zeman, the HPC, they went through this on a number of occasions, and they are confident that they voted to recommend the design that's prepared and included in your packet. At the September meeting, they gave their final approval. Again, they altered the scale to give the appearance of multiple storefronts. They confirmed that the materials are used in various other buildings in the downtown St. Peter. And then I'll just briefly touch on the development agreement. As Shannon said, it's a pay-as-you-go tax increment financing district. Just to give you an idea of the income levels, 20% of the occupied housing units to 50% of the area median or less. As we had discussed when the Picorni project was undertaken, a single person would have an income of just under $30,000. A family of four would be $42,350. And I do believe those are probably 2020 numbers, and they've been adjusted slightly upward for 2021. I just saw that. Those are numbers I had for the Picorni deal, and those were a year old now. So, STP Group LLC has consented to the terms of the tax increment agreement and the purchase agreement and the design, and they have executed the documents that are in your packet for your consideration. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, we can get a drink of water and I'll answer any questions you might have.
All right, how's the water? That's the first question we have, is that okay?
Thank you.
All right. Questions for Russ? Carrie?
Russ, remind me how many units, again, rental units?
There'd be 34 residential units within the two buildings.
34 residential units. What is our current rental vacancy rate in the city of St. Peter since you've last studied
The
it?
most recent, we were at 0.9% or vacant units, multifamily units 4 or more.
And how long has it taken to develop this site? How long has it been vacant since the city has
It's
owned
been
it?
vacant since the early 1990s, when it was cleared as for possible development, and that was never came to realization.
Mhm.
So that's how the city acquired the property.
Right. So I just have a comment that I personally welcome this opportunity, especially to bring housing and additional commercial space to the downtown for a place that hasn't been developed in decades. And so it's a welcome opportunity. I appreciate everything the architect and the HPC did, and you, Russ, to work together and do the collaboration. The architectural design and look of it, of course, is important in following heritage preservation guidelines. I think the building looks fantastic, and I think it's very welcome in the downtown from my perspective. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Russ, could I get a clarification? And I'll get you, Emily. 34 units? I thought we were told 37 units. 34? I thought when I counted them, I thought,
35 on-site parking spots.
there you go. Okay, thank you. Emily?
Oh, thank you. Just wanted to mention that, yes, the heritage preservation, we talked at length about this for many different meetings, and the conversation was really, really good. Like, we had a lot of things to talk about, and the architect just presented a really wonderful design to us, and we talked about every aspect, and I think came to a really good agreement. And so I really feel good about this project. I think the building materials and how it looks, how it's laid out to look in the downtown is very sympathetic to what's around it. So I think that's a really, really good thing. And I know that we need that housing, just as Councilmember Johnson just said, that we really need this housing. I also wanted to say that in the last couple weeks, I've had a conversation with one of our business owners and a tenant who live in the block north of this construction, and they had initially had some concerns about parking, but I know that I've been talking with Russ and Todd about some of this too, and I hope that their concerns have been dispelled, that we've been keeping an eye on how many open parking spots there are in the block where this construction will be, and the side streets, Mulberry and Grace Street on either side. And, it really sounds like parking isn't going to be the big issue that a lot of people were concerned about, and especially with the addition of the parking lot that the developers are including with this project. So I just wanted to share that and let everyone know. I think this is an awesome project, and thank you, Russ, and the developers and the architect for all your work on this.
Ed?
Question on the parking, and I couldn't find a picture that would really tell the story, and I had a question from a couple people. Is there going to be parking on the south side of the building? Be next to Bolum and the laundromat there?
Yeah, Ms. Willette, who owns Saint's Laundry,
Yep.
She actually owns a 22-foot strip of land, I believe it is, on the north of Mark Bolum's building.
Yep.
That will be maintained, and there will also then be a small area for her to maneuver vehicles that'll be on the developer's property.
Okay, so there will be parking along.
Excuse me?
She can park there.
She should be able to maintain the parking that she has at this point.
Okay, that's the only question I had. Otherwise, it looks good.
So that parking is for that building, so we still are short. Now, I heard just the opposite of what Emily has heard from business owners, downtown business owners. That parking will be one stall short, or one stall over the amount that, of units there are. I spoke to Mr. Barori after our last meeting when he appeared before I have a few concerns that I expressed that night. One was mainly the parking. I would think we could gain, or this buildings could gain, and I spoke to him about the noise level on the courtyard, that if you've ever been on Minnesota Avenue, it's tough to hear on that courtyard. If we would move that building over, we could gain, I don't know how wide that courtyard is, we could gain some more parking on the south side of the building, of the new building. So we at least would have some more at that point. I don't know if any of that has been looked into or thought about or any of this stuff. I went over Saturday, Russ, to the downtown Le Sueur to look at that buildings. This is the old walking mall, whatever you want to call it, downtown. And from a distance, yeah, looks good. But you go up close to it, which most people will be just driving by, but you go up close to it, the grout lines, especially on the inside corners, which there are inside corners here, and maybe it's the installer, you have your standard grout line, what are they, 1/4 inch? Is that what they are? There was grout lines on the inside corners of this building that were this wide, and I don't know how long this has been there, it's pretty new. And they were already cracking because there's no depth to them, because of the thickness of this material. So, you know, we got grout lines this wide, right next to grout lines this wide. And its close-up appearance, it was terrible. From the street, looks great. So that's a concern I have. And we had talked a little bit about the appearance of the buildings next door with the parapet walls, especially on the facade, about maybe giving a little more character to them, and I think that would have added a lot to this building project. Those are concerns that I have. This thing with the parking and what is there? Is there no requirement, Russ, for downtown?
There's not in the central business district, no. They're exempt, all the uses are exempt from off-street parking. I did a count, if we look at the 4 streets, including the Highway, Grace, 3rd, and Mulberry, parking on both sides of those streets, I've got 101 unit, or parking stalls within that block, on street. As I think most of us would suggest, that over the noon hour has been what I've counted is probably the most parking downtown. My noon hour count I did last Tuesday at 12:15 in the afternoon. At that point, there were 2 cars parked in the parking lot, not including the ones that along Megan Willette's property on the north, but within the parking lot there were 2. There were 41 occupied stalls on the street in the 4 streets around the property on both sides, which left 61 unoccupied stalls on those same streets. That was the busiest. You know, obviously, if you look at a morning before 10, when the stores are open, it's negligible. So there will be, you know, peak times for parking, just like there are peak times for intersections. And I think in the downtown, it's when the Redmond's looking to get full, when Nicollet Cafe is full, when the Food Co-op Deli is full, when 3rd Street Tavern is full. And I think those are what all of us would recognize as the typical stressors. But again, on a Tuesday, and maybe I should have counted every day at noon, but on last Tuesday at 12:15, there were still 60 parking stalls available within the block, again, on either one of the 4 streets.
Okay.
So, and it's not scientific count. It was really just trying to get out there various times at different days and different times of the day, so.
So if I have a building downtown, business underneath, on Nassau, let's say, I think that's Nassau, and I have apartments up above, there's no requirement for me to have any off-street parking,
No, sir.
okay? Do we have anybody here, not to put you on the spot, do we have anybody here that has a building there, Jim?
Yeah.
And you have no requirements for off-street parking?
I've got off-street parking.
Right, but there was no requirement for you to do so.
I don't, I've had it so long, I don't know. I
Okay,
thought there
all right.
was some, when the Nicollet House was developed, I thought there were requirements that they had to meet.
Yeah, like I say, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I know you have a building down there, and I know you have 2 apartments up above, and I was just kind of wondering what you had to abide by down there.
Mr. Mayor, if I could speak
Sure.
to the Nicollet House, because that was a question that was brought up previously at a workshop, if I recall. The requirements related to the Nicollet House weren't requirements from your ordinance. They were requirements that were put on through the Department of Interior and the State Historical Preservation Office to receive funding for the rehab of that facility after the tornado. So they had requirements within their funding mechanism that were not a part of what your ordinance were.
Okay? Any other questions? I guess I just look at this and it's fine. I know I mean, it's acceptable. But it just, to me, with the parking especially, is kind of, just because we can, just doesn't mean that we should. If there's other ways we can incorporate more parking into, Matt, if you can do that, I think it's a little late now because it's all approved as it is this way, or through the HPC. But I just think there could have been at least a few more stalls put in there to compensate. Any other questions, comments? If not, the resolution approving the establishment of tax increment financing, excuse me, I think I skipped one here.
Yeah, 155.
Sorry about that. Knew it sounded familiar. On page 155 and 156, the resolution authorizing execution of a development agreement and purchase agreement by and between the city and STP Group LLC and approving the design and materials utilized in the development of parking lot number 5, as I said, appears on page 155 and 156. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Get that, Barb? All right. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Zimmer.
Nay.
Councilmember Ross.
Aye.
Councilmember Dupla.
Aye.
Resolution is approved with 5 ayes and 1 nay. Thanks, Russ. Thank you, Shannon. Next up, we have the sale of the city-owned property at 101 North Front Street. Todd.
Mayor, members, this is an item that the council spoke about in closed session a number of months ago. At that point, you directed the city attorney to provide a counter offer to the folks that were providing an offer on the property. You own the property there, not the building. You own the land and not the building. The building and that area is commonly, at least what we commonly refer to now, as Cambria University. Some people might call it the old Creamery location. But at that time, you asked for a counteroffer to be made at $110,000, and Jim has reported that they have accepted that. As a part of that, Jim, based on your direction, provided for a purchase agreement that has since been signed by the folks at Cambria. And so the information is included in your packet, starting on page 157. It's also important to know that they will be providing for an assignment of this as well from the current leaseors to Cambria, and Jim has provided some of that information. But the maybe most important part to you is it's $110,000. The staff is recommending that that go into your general fund as a part of the revenue stream there. And the resolution to take care of all of this is included on page 171 and 172. Mr. Mayor, I'm sure Jim or I would be happy to stand for any questions that you or the members might have.
All right, questions? Go ahead, Brett.
So the proceeds going into the general fund, have those, as part of our budget cycle that we're currently been going through, have those been added to that, or are those not part of the current?
They are not. We really didn't know whether they would accept or not.
Yep.
And so it was not part of the planning for this.
The reason why I asked that is so the Parks Fund, that for Community Spirit Park, that still is in a deficit after the sale of the water treatment ponds, correct?
That is correct.
In this case, this is money that we weren't necessarily expecting to come into the general fund. Would this be something that might be a good opportunity to make up that deficit?
It certainly would be. The reason that the recommendation comes in this manner is because when this was first discussed quite a while ago, that was the direction that was provided. It was also the recommendation that was provided. And so at that time, that fund was approximately $400,000 in the red,
Yep.
give or take a little bit. And so this wasn't anticipated to roll in this time frame or in this fashion.
And now that we've got them, that's why I'm thinking at this time, now that we've got both, we've got the treatment pond sold, and we know where are we with the where are we with the deficit on that fund? Do you know?
On which fund?
The treatment, or not the treatment,
Parks.
the Community Spirit Park fund that.
So that isn't
Or what-
separate. It's a parkland dedication fund,
Parkland
and it's a
dedication
little bit
fund,
over
sorry.
$50,000.
A little bit over $50,000.
So if there was a friendly amendment that said, take X amount of dollars, whatever it takes to get that fund to zero, Sally would do that calculation, the remaining funds would go into the general fund or wherever the council wanted to assign it.
Well, I think as a part of the proposal, when this is moved, that we might, I would like to consider that, so. If anyone else has any comments.
Well, my thoughts on that, Brad, I understand that, that hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, but that could be one of the things. To me, this is something that instead of just bringing it up now on this point, which is fine, maybe this is a topic we have in not too long, a goal-setting session, and it might be something there for consideration. There may be other things that we need to consider. What they are, I don't know, but instead of just doing it at this point, but I think you raise a valid point that that's something we should take a look at doing that. So if that, you know.
No, that makes sense.
But, you know, whatever the council's wishes are, I'm not here to.
Yeah, I had the same question as Brad and was kind of thinking along the same lines. I'd be comfortable bringing that to a future meeting, but I'd like to discuss it further.
Yeah, there might be something that comes up in the meantime, and I don't know, and maybe there's something that other people have priority to take a look at, so. But that doesn't mean we can't vote on it, and if people don't want to, we don't have to approve it either. Is that fair, Brad?
Yep, no, that makes sense. That actually is. I agree with that, so I think.
All right. Any other questions for Todd or comments on this? The resolution approving the sale of city-owned property at 101 North Front Street to Cambria Real Estate Holdings LLC appears on pages 171 and 172. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Blumenthal.
Aye.
Councilmember Terry Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have the 2022-2023 legal services contract. Todd?
Mayor, members, information starts on in your packet on page 173. As you know, it is the council's practice to forward the proposal provided by your contract legal counsel to your finance committee. That finance committee met a week or so ago, and the results of that are a memo on page 173. The proposal from the Brandt Law Firm starts on page 174. The committee took action to recommend approval of the contract for the 2022 and the 2023 year. That's represented as a part of the resolution on page 180. It also provides and appoints James Brandt as your city attorney, and Stephen Winkler as your assistant city attorney. Mayor members, I'm happy to answer any questions that I can related to this, and Jim, of course, is here if you have any questions from his firm's standpoint.
Questions? Jim, I looked at this. Is your decimal point in the wrong spot on some of these numbers?
I hope not.
No, we discussed this in the finance department, or finance meeting, I should say, and thank you again, Jim, for your firm, for doing all of their work and support over the years.
Mr. Mayor, there is a substantial benefit to have the institutional history that Jim's firm provides for the council. He's your attorney, and so it's really helpful to have that institutional history, and to recreate that would be very expensive.
Well, I know there's some other communities that are looking to the what was, Barb?
The dates should be 2021 and 2022.
Oh, on the number 2, okay. When we come to that, I'll mention that. But I know that other communities are looking at using out-of-town firms, you know, and I just can't imagine the extras they have to go through to accomplish that. And I know we have to go down tomorrow morning and sign some papers down here for the sale of the parking lot number 5, and makes it a lot easier, a lot more convenient, and done very professionally. The resolution approving the execution of 2022-2023 legal services contract appears on page 180, but there is a correction. On point number 2, it should say 2022 and 2023 instead of the 2020 and 2021. So with that change, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Blumenthal.
Aye.
Councilmember Terry Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have the no maintenance trail designations. Todd and Pete.
Yeah, actually, this is one that Pete covers. Pete, we do this in kind of an every other year cycle, don't we?
Right.
All right.
We asked for permission not to do some of this work on a 2-year basis. Otherwise, we'd be here all the time asking you to allow us to bypass that. Mayor Zeman and City Council, our request is common from what we've done in the past here. We really haven't changed a lot, but I wanted to update you on a couple of activities. Our ordinance requires that sidewalks and trails be cleaned. And so we're asking for permission to not clean certain sidewalks. That's why we're asking permission for this activity. We have about 18.5 miles. We've been working on a winter non-cleaning basis since 2009. And so for every couple of years we come back. We have been adding trails on a regular basis and sidewalks. And as we explain in the memo here, trails are basically a little wider and used for bicycles and a variety of different activities, where sidewalks are mainly used for foot traffic and getting pedestrians from A to B. There is a map that is descriptive on pages 183 and 184 that talks about the trails. There's 13 of them, and sidewalks. There's a few of those that we're asking not to clean. And so in a lot of these areas, we have trail sidewalk on both sides, and we're asking one of those not be accomplished. We're still getting the majority of the traffic through. We do have good experience. History has told us which side's easier to clean and better to clean, and which side fills in all the time and is not easy to maintain. And so that's what we're really identifying here with this process. There is a resolution on pages 185 and 186 that talk about these activities, and we're asking that you approve that, which would mean we would not clean the trails identified for 2021, 2022, and 2023.
Okay. Questions? Carrie?
Do we receive constituent feedback or requests to keep certain trails or sidewalks open that we've typically closed in the past? And do we consider that feedback as we're making this list?
Right, we do receive a little bit of feedback, and so it depends on the type of winter. So if we don't have a lot of snow, we try to keep them open as long as we can. But if we get early and often, then we go pretty much by the book on the trail system.
Okay.
So you'll see on the asphalt trails especially, if we have light snow on those, we can clean those off and the sun will open those up right away and make it easier for people to be out there. If it's a pleasant winter, it's a little easier to cover some of this.
So have we ever received a lot of feedback on one trail or sidewalk in particular that we ended up keeping open as a result of the request?
Well, mostly around the school has probably been the learning factor.
Okay.
You know, what's needed. The school has also done some activities to maintain around their school for opening.
Yeah, I think I saw that on the map in the blue sections.
Right,
Yeah, okay.
And so otherwise, it's been pretty straightforward. Most of the people are really just used to how we operate and have accepted that. If we do have an unusual event, sometimes we will clean something that's closed, but that's few and far between.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Shannon, you had your hand up.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your explanation. I did have a question about a trail, like, why would you, doing the south side versus the north side? Because I would think the north side, or the south side would have more traffic, but I bet it clears itself pretty quickly with the sun and such.
Yeah, that's what you're seeing on County Road 20 as
Yeah.
an example.
Yeah.
Snow will come across the west side and.
Sure. That makes sense. And I did have a question about sidewalks at a minimum of 6 feet to comply with ADA standards.
Yep.
Does that mean as we replace sidewalks in cities, some of the older sidewalks that are narrower will eventually be replaced with 6-foot sidewalks?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to have a total of 6 feet altogether. You may have a sidewalk that still meets ADA compliance that is smaller than that, but then the angles and slopes are different, so 6 foot gives us that flexibility.
Okay, thanks.
Emily?
Yeah, thank you. Pete, just, I'm looking at the map and maybe just, in case I'm missing something, is it generally true that there's at least one sidewalk on one side of the road that is clear, and then it'll just be one side that's closed, but there is a clear side?
Correct.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
that's what it looked like.
That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to double check. Thanks. Yeah, it makes good sense to me.
Anyone else? Brad?
Pete, so the trail number 1 around West Jefferson Park, is that storm basin there? Is that
It is,
that?
it is, it's a
So-
gravel
Is that the gravel
path,
trail? So it looks like, so then the sidewalk on that side of Nicollet is gonna stay open, right?
I believe
Cause
so.
it looks like the east side is not being covered, but the west side should be open.
I believe that's the way it is, yes.
Okay, yeah, just wanna make sure there's still a clear path to the high school.
What we do not do is the east side of Nicollet
Yep.
Avenue. The west side stays open,
Yep,
and that is on between Broadway and County Road 20.
so,
You're talking more towards Jefferson.
exactly,
Yep.
yep. Yeah, I just wanna make sure there's still like a
Correct.
clear path to
Yep.
the high school, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Pete, are there any major changes from the previous time we did this?
There is not.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, the resolution establishing no winter maintenance trails and sidewalks for the winters of 2021, 2022, and 2022, 2023 appear on pages 185 and 186. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any more questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruth Black.
Aye.
Councilmember Gary Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have a job description modification for forester. Todd?
Mayor and members, Pete and I will tag team on
And
this
Pete.
if you any have significant questions related to this one. But you did take a look at this at your last workshop and proposed a couple of changes which have been included within the description, save one. You did have a discussion about the foreman title, and I'm punting just a little bit for a little bit of time. We have a number of foreman slots. And so if there's a desire to change that, let us bring you back some that would be the same across all the job functions and departments, so they're all the same rather than just doing this one.
I asked that question, and I'm just...
It's a great point,
No,
Mr.
no,
Mayor.
I don't care if it's a great point or not. I'm just asking it just for what our policy is. And then basically,
Yeah.
you answered that the other night, so...
Yeah, and so we do plan to bring something back, but again, within the various departments, we want to have something that fits across that for those on the organizational chart. They're on that same level. But again, this is done based on there being an opening within this position. It's your practice to review the job description, and again, we did have a few changes that we went over at the workshop, and we're happy to clarify those, but there's a resolution in your packet approving this job description. If you do pass that resolution, that's then our signal to go forward with the recruitment process, which we would undertake.
Okay. Pete, anything to add?
Nope, we've got her covered.
He did good?
He did well.
Anyone have any questions concerning the updated position description? If not, that resolution for adopting the updated forester position description appears on page 192. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Ruth Black.
Aye.
Councilmember Gary Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye. That resolution is approved. That concludes our new business. Next up, we have reports, and I don't have a thing to add. Todd, right to you.
Mayor and members, just one item related to the election. As you know, there's a local election on November 2nd, and there are a number of very important things on the ballot, including mayor's race, council member races, school board members, and sales tax referendum with the city, and then what's typically called an excess levy referendum for the school district. So those are going on. We want to remind folks that polling places within the city of St. Peter are at the Armory or at the Community Center, and we have some great information on our website, and certainly you can go through the Secretary of State's office in the state of Minnesota, and they can direct you to the appropriate polling place. You have judges that are ready to go to help people vote. We also want to mention that absentee voting is available for folks. Typically they do that through the county, but that's available to folks right up until the day before the election. And then you have to have those turned back in by 5 o'clock. Again, polling places and times are on our website, and we really encourage people to participate. We always have a wonderful tradition in St. Peter of great voter turnout, and so we want to keep that tradition thriving within St. Peter. very important things on the local level for folks to vote on, and so we hope they get out and vote. Barb, is there anything I missed?
Just want to clarify on the absentee ballots, if you go in person, you have until 5 p.m. on November 1st, Monday. If you're mailing it back, it has to be received by 3 p.m. on election day.
To be safe, probably be there by 3.
Right.
Members, that's all that I have for you for this evening.
Okay, Todd, I have a question related to this, and I've gotten calls this last week. Have we officially gotten rid of precincts? Didn't we do that?
No, we've had that discussion.
Okay.
But that will likely be an issue that comes forward to you as a part of census.
Okay.
And as redistricting occurs. That's a great time for that discussion to occur again.
Okay, because the question has come up a couple times this week. I get calls saying,
Yeah.
I know what ward I'm in, but what precinct am I in? And you know,
Sure.
that type of thing. Anyway, not a big deal. I was just wondering if we had eliminated it or not.
Really, for St. Peter, it doesn't really matter
Right.
at the local election for council or
Right.
mayor's race.
Right, exactly.
But it does matter, so go to the correct.
You got to go to the right one. Yeah, I mean, that's fair, Mark. You got to be in the right place. And judges can help you. There's maps there, and they're
Oh,
more than happy to help you get to the right spot.
Very, very helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
They're very helpful. Anybody else have anything else they would like to add or share? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
A second.
All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
You are so right, Barb. You are very right. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, no, it matters, but it's the same issue. Yeah.